As an introduction to this story, let me share a little poem. 1 bowl, 2 bowls, 3 bowls, then 10, 20, 30. People tell that he drank 100 bowls of Soma. With each draught his muscles swelled, his chest expanded, his eyes shone like twin suns, his smile grew wider, his voice boomed louder, and with each gulp thunder rumbled 1 beat deeper in his chest. No one knew whether Indra was drunk or sober, but all felt it. The drink did not make him stumble. It made him erupt, transform into the storm itself. Mortals, trembling yet amazed, whispered, "This god. Does he drink to be drunk, or to become lightning alive?" It's a simple question, isn't it? To get drunk, or to become one with the divine essence of the storm itself? What would you choose? Now, you might think that the answer is obvious. Of course, no one would choose to risk becoming one with the storm, unless they were crazy. But our perception of what is sane and insane is limited by our own mortality. We can't comprehend the mindset of a god who has transcended death. So how can we possibly decide what he would do? Think about it. When a mortal drinks alcohol, the first thing they do is let go. They lose control. Why wouldn't a god want to feel that? God whose every action is measured, whose every word is weighed. God who has shouldered the burden of creation and preservation for millennia. A God who has to constantly be in his cosmic seat and keep everything running like clockwork. Wouldn't he crave to just let go? For a moment, just to feel the sensation of losing control, even if it meant risking his godly form? This poem describes the many faces of the storm god Indra. There are multiple layers here, so hold on tight, because things are about to get real bumpy. Indra, drinking 100 bowls of Soma, is not just a poetic exaggeration. It's a powerful symbol of his intense relationship with the divine drink. The number 100 in Hindu mythology signifies completeness, totality, perfection. It represents the idea of going all in, of leaving nothing behind, of total immersion. When Indra drinks 100 bowls of Soma, he is not just getting drunk. He is diving headfirst into the ocean of divinity. He is surrendering himself completely to the experience. He's seeking union, not just with the drink, but with the divine consciousness that the drink represents. The poem also uses vivid imagery to show us the effects of the Soma on Indra's body and his mind. His muscles swell, his chest expands, his eyes shine like twin suns. This is not just physical transformation. It is a transformation of consciousness. His senses are heightened, his awareness is expanded, and his ego is dissolved. He becomes one with the storm, with the rain, with the thunder, with the lightning. He becomes one with the natural forces that he controls. But the most interesting part of the poem is the last line. It says that no one knows whether Indra was drunk or sober. And I love that line because it challenges our understanding of intoxication. We usually think of drunkenness as a state of mind, as a loss of control, as a lack of sobriety. But what if drunkenness is not a state of mind, but a state of being? What if it is a way of experiencing the world that is just as valid, just as real, just as sober as any other way? What if it is a different kind of sobriety? When we look at Indra through the lens of our limited human understanding, we might think that he is drunk, that he is out of his mind, that he is not in control. But when we look at him through the eyes of a poet, we might see that he is not drunk at all, but simply transformed, expanded, enlightened. He is not lost in alcohol, but lost in the divine. He is not stumbling, but soaring. He is not falling, but flying. He is not weak, but powerful. He is not ordinary, but extraordinary. He is not human, but godly. You see, the storm god Indra is more than just a god of storms. He is a god of many things: strength, power, courage, virility, rain, thunder, lightning, fertility, prosperity. He is one of the most popular and important gods in Hinduism, and he is also one of the most complex and controversial ones. He is both revered and feared, praised and blamed, loved and hated. He is both the source of life and the bringer of death. He is both the hero and the villain, both the savior and the destroyer. Why is he so complex? Because he represents the paradox of nature. Nature is both benign and violent, both creative and destructive, both nurturing and annihilating. Nature is both beautiful and terrifying, both generous and merciless. Nature is both life-giving and life-taking. Nature is both friend and foe. And Indra embodies this paradox. He is both God and man, both perfect and flawed, both divine and human. He is both the ideal and the example. He is the ideal because he represents the highest potential of humanity, the potential to be strong, to be brave, to be divine. He is an example because he shows us the pitfalls of humanity, the pitfalls of pride, of anger, of lust, of greed, of envy, of gluttony, of sloth, of avarice, of vanity, of wrath. These are the eightfold path of evil, the eightfold enemies of humanity, the eightfold vices that can corrupt and destroy us. And Indra struggles with these vices. He is not immune to them. He is not beyond them. He is not superior to them. He is as vulnerable to them as any other mortal. And yet he triumphs over them. He conquers them, transcends them. He rises above them. How does he do it? With Soma? This poem tells us that the drink did not make him stumble. It made him erupt, transform into the storm itself. Soma is not just a drink. It is a sacrament, a magic potion, a divine nectar, a cosmic energy, a spiritual elixir. It is the essence of life, the essence of consciousness, the essence of reality. It is the essence of the universe. Soma is not just a symbol of transcendence. It is also a symbol of transformation. It transforms Indra from a mortal to a god to a hero to a king, from a king to a sage to a seer, from a seer to a poet to a lover, from a lover to a warrior to a ruler, from a ruler to a servant to a friend, from a friend to a devotee to a givan, from a givan to a muni, from a muni to a yogi, from a yogi to a Buddha. Soma is not just a drink. It is a journey, a pilgrimage, a quest, a sacrifice, a celebration. Now, remember that ancient Indian texts, like the Rig Veda, call alcohol madhu, which means honeyed drink. Alcohol was considered a gift from the gods. In fact, the Rig Veda even had a whole hymn dedicated to praising alcohol. So it's not surprising that even the gods got drunk sometimes. There's this other story about the god Agni. The Rig Veda says that once the gods became intoxicated with the Soma juice and forgot their duties, it created a huge mess. The world was thrown into chaos. The sacrifices were neglected. The rituals were abandoned. The offerings were forgotten. Prayers were unanswered. The hymns were unsung. The praises were unheard. And then came the dawn. She saw the state of things and asked the sun to hide away until the gods sobered up. The sun agreed and hid behind the mountains. The dawn then spread her light around and covered the sky with her rosy fingers. And thus the day became dark and cold and wet. The rain fell, and the wind blew, and the clouds gathered, and the thunder roared, and the lightning flashed, and the earth trembled. The animals hid, and the plants withered, and the rivers dried, and the lakes froze, and the mountains cracked, and the valleys shivered. And the whole world waited for the return of the sun. When the gods woke up and realized what they had done, they were ashamed and sorry. They begged the dawn to forgive them and restore order. The dawn agreed and lifted her fingers from her face, revealing the sun. The sun smiled and emerged from behind the mountains, spreading his warmth and light and joy and beauty all around.
Wow.
The world sighed with relief and rejoiced in the return of the sun. The gods resumed their duties, and the rituals and the offerings and the prayers and the hymns and the praises and the sacrifices, and everything went back to normal. You see, even the gods need a reminder sometimes. Sometimes they forget who they are, what they have to do, why they are doing it. But the world doesn't stop for them. The world keeps turning whether they remember or forget. The world keeps moving whether they participate or abstain. The world keeps flowing whether they lead or follow. The world doesn't care about their drama. The world has its own rhythm, its own rhyme, its own reason. And sometimes the gods have to learn that lesson all over again. What does that tell you? That even gods need a break sometimes? Even gods need to let go? Even gods need to feel the feeling of losing control? Maybe that's why Indra drank 100 bowls of Soma not to get drunk.
God.
but to become the storm, to become the lightning, to become one with the divine, to become one with the infinite, to become one with everything. Maybe that's why Indra drank 100 bowls of Soma, to remind himself and all of us that sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself. Sometimes you have to let go to hold on to something bigger than yourself. Sometimes you have to drink to become lightning. So next time you raise your glass of Soma, ask yourself, am I drinking to get drunk, or am I drinking to become lightning? The battle between the gods and the demons rages in full force. The atmosphere is thick with tension as the fate of the world hangs in the balance. Amidst the chaos, there is one warrior who stands out above the rest, and his name is Indra, the king of the gods, the ruler of the heavens. He has been fighting alongside his fellow deities, but his heart is heavy. He knows that this battle cannot be won with brute force alone. He needs a weapon that can destroy the darkness that envelops the land and bring back the light. As if sensing his thoughts, Brahma, the creator god, approaches him. His forehead adorned with flowers, his body painted with celestial colors. He is the epitome of divine wisdom and knowledge. Indra, he says, his voice echoing with cosmic power, you seek a weapon. But it is not in the heavens that you will find it. You must journey to the abode of the deities, for there you shall receive the thunderbolt. Indra bows his head in gratitude. Show me the way, O Lord Brahma, he says, and I shall bring back the light to the world. So Brahma, the creator god, leads Indra on a celestial chariot drawn by 7 swift horses through the vast expanse of the cosmos. They traverse through the realms of the ancestors, and finally arrive at the abode of the deities, where the sun god resides. Dudya, the supreme ruler of the heavens, greets them with a warm smile. His eyes are like blazing suns, and his laughter echoes with the music of celestial spheres. Da! Welcome, brother, he says to Indra. What brings you here? Indra explains his quest for a powerful weapon to destroy the darkness that has fallen upon the world. And Aditya, moved by his brother's plight, reveals the secret of the thunderbolt. It is hidden in the heart of the mountain Meru, he says, guarded by the serpents of darkness. Only the pure of heart and strong of will can retrieve it. Accepting this challenge, Indra prepares to depart. Aditya hands him over the bow of cosmic power, its string made of celestial fire, its arrows tipped with the essence of the stars. Use it wisely, brother, the sun god says, for it is a weapon of immense power. With the bow in hand, Indra bids farewell to the deities, and begins his journey back to the battlefield. As he leaves the abode of light and returns to the dark and gloomy atmosphere of the war-torn world, a sense of urgency fills him. He knows that the fate of all creation hangs in the balance, and that he must act swiftly to save his people. Meanwhile, the demons, under the command of their leader, the nefarious Vritra, continue to wreak havoc. Their dark magic corrupts the land, twisting once peaceful creatures into monstrous forms and plunging the world into chaos. Among the demons, Vritra stands out as a figure of pure evil. His eyes blaze with malevolent energy, and his every move exudes an aura of impending doom. He is the embodiment of darkness, the personification of all that the gods stand against. But even in the darkest depths of despair, the seeds of hope remain. And for the gods, that glimmer of hope is none other than Indra himself. News of his return spreads like wildfire, invigorating the weary warriors and rekindling the dying embers of hope. They rally around their king, drawing strength from his indomitable spirit and unwavering determination. Together they face the demons in a final showdown that will determine the fate of all creation. The clash between good and evil reaches a fever pitch. Gods and demons engage in a deadly dance of combat, their weapons clashing, their powers colliding in a symphony of destruction. The very foundations of the cosmos seem to tremble under the impact of their struggle. Amidst this chaos, Indra emerges as a beacon of hope. With each strike of his thunderbolt, he sends shivers of anticipation through the ranks of the gods, for they know that in his hands, the thunderbolt is more than just a weapon. It is a symbol of their faith, a representation of their unwavering belief in the triumph of good over evil. But Vritra is no ordinary foe. As the battle rages, it becomes clear that defeating him will require more than just brute force or celestial weapons. It will take courage, strategy, and above all, unity among the gods. The gods fight valiantly, but they are losing ground. Just when all seems to be going against them, a cry echoes across the battlefield. Forward, gods, I am with you. Looking towards the source of the sound, they see Indra approaching, his eyes blazing with determination, his steps firm and unwavering. In his hand, he holds a weapon that seems to hum with otherworldly energy, the thunderbolt. When the last bowl was drained, Indra rose. His steps shook the earth. He reached down and grasped the Vudra, the thunderbolt forged from the primal fires of the universe. The moment the Vudra blazed, the heavy black sky split for an instant. That light was not mere lightning, but the very emblem of life, hope, and divine power beyond all creation. The other gods watched, still afraid. None dared descend with Indra except for a few valiant souls, but they murmured, could it be that he truly means to face Vitra? But can Soma and lightning alone be enough? Indra climbed aboard the chariot, which soared heavenward, disappearing between earth and sky. The demons below saw the departing god and roared in triumph, thinking themselves invincible. Vritra stood with folded arms, a cruel smile on his lips. Then suddenly the sky rumbled with peals of thunder that shook the three worlds. Vritra raised his head and let out a roar that mingled with the thunder. The thunderbolt descended, splitting the sky and shaking the earth. Where it fell, a pool of sparkling water was formed, reflecting the brilliance of the Vajra. In the heavenly assembly, all eyes were on Indra, waiting to see what he would do next. The king of the gods stood bathed in the light of the thunderbolt, his face grave and resolute. Now, though the weapon was mightier than any he had wielded before, its power lay dormant, needing a vessel to channel its might. At that moment, Agni appeared before them, his flames dancing with celestial light. Indra, he cried, grant me but a drop of that holy water, and I shall become the vessel of your power. Without hesitation, Indra dipped a finger into the pool and touched Agni's flame. Instantly, the flames enveloped Agni, transforming him into a pillar of searing light. Go, boomed Indra, and be the harbinger of our victory. With a final nod, Agni departed, shooting up like a meteor toward the battle below. The demons saw a fiery god ascending, filling them with dread. As Agni approached the fray, Vritra raised his arms and bellowed, "Who dares interfere with my conquest?" Agni answered, his voice thundering, "I am Agni, the divine messenger of the gods. Depart, vile demon, or face the wrath of the heavens." Vritra laughed, a sound that echoed with malice. "So the gods have sent their herald to deliver their final defiance. Very well, I shall send you back to them, bearing their doom." As he spoke, he hurled a bolt of dark magic at Agni, who deflected it with a blast of searing flames. And so, the battle commenced, a clash between light and darkness, between the divine and the demonic. Agni fought with the ferocity of 1,000 suns, his flames searing the darkness and banishing the demons. Yet Vritra stood firm, his dark magic swirling around him like a shield. Just when it seemed that the darkness might prevail, Indra descended from the heavens atop his chariot. With a mighty swing of the thunderbolt, he shattered Vritra's defenses, sending the demons scattering. "Flee, Agni," boomed Indra. "Your task is done. Let me finish this." As Agni retreated, Vritra turned to face his new opponent, a grim determination settling on his features. With a roar that shook the earth, he charged at Indra. The two titans clashed, their weapons ringing like celestial bells, their powers colliding in blinding flashes. But with each passing moment, it became clear that Vritra was no match for Indra. The king of the gods fought with the precision of a master swordsman, his every move calculated, every strike aimed at weakening the demon lord. And with the aid of the thunderbolt, Vritra's resistance crumbled. Finally, with a mighty roar, Indra struck the death blow. The thunderbolt blazed forth, enveloping Vritra in a blinding light. As the light subsided, Vritra was nowhere to be seen. With a final bellow that echoed across the heavens, the demon lord vanished from existence. Silence fell upon the battlefield, broken only by the soft lapping of water and the gentle rustling of the wind. The gods emerged from their hiding places, their faces filled with awe and gratitude. They had won, and their victory was all the sweeter for the return of their king. Indra stood tall, his chest heaving slightly, the thunderbolt held high. I had faced his fears and emerged victorious, proving that even the darkest of nights must yield to the dawning of day. The gods cheered, their voices rising in a chorus of triumph. The long night of despair was over. A new era of hope and light had begun. The sun was a malevolent eye staring down at the earth. It had been 7 months since it had rained, long months of relentless heat. Crops were withered, rivers were dry, and men prayed for a savior. But there was no savior. Only a legend spoke of one who would dare to defy the sky, a warrior whose might could shake the heavens. And that warrior was supposed to be reborn when the earth was parched beyond hope, when the very gods abandoned their posts. And so it was that on the banks of a dried-up river, a lone man stood facing the unforgiving sun. He was tall and lean, with skin the color of burnished copper and hair like a raven S-wing. His eyes were the blue of a summer sky, and his gaze was fixed on the heavens. In his right hand he held a mace, its head carved into the face of a snarling tiger. This was no ordinary mace. It was made of celestial iron, forged by dwarves in the heart of a dying star. Its name was Vajra, and it was said to crack the sky when wielded by a god. But this man was no god. He was Indra, king of the gods, banished from the heavens and sent to earth in disguise. And what he lacked in godly powers, he made up for in mortal resolve. The mortals down below looked up to him, their savior. But he knew that if he failed, they would die. So he raised his mace high above his head and thundered, "I am Indra. I challenge you, O sky, to a battle of strength. Let the mightiest of us prevail." His voice echoed across the barren land, shaking the dust off the dry leaves. A lone bird took flight, the first sign of life the parched earth had seen in months. Then a miracle happened. The clouds parted, and a single raindrop fell. And then another, and another, until the skies opened up and the heavens wept. Rain lashed down on the thirsty ground, filling the rivers and swelling the crops. It was as if the earth itself was heaving a sigh of relief, and the people rejoiced. They danced and sang, thanking the gods for the return of the rains. But they did not see the lone figure standing on the riverbank, drenched and exhausted, his mace heavy in his hand. He had one, yet he was far from victorious. For the sky was not just a force of nature, it was a god in its own right, a primordial being of immense power. And now that primordial god was angry. From the depths of the clouds a booming voice echoed, "So you have defied me, little god. You have dared to challenge the sky. Very well, I shall crush you." And with that, the sky unleashed its fury. Bolts of lightning split the heavens, and the thunder roared like the voice of creation. Torrential rain lashed down, trying to wash away the memory of defiance. Winds screamed and howled, seeking to tear down the one who had challenged the sky. But Indra stood firm. He raised his mace high and roared back, "Come, O sky, I await your wrath. Let the mightiest of us prevail." The sky rumbled, and from the heart of the storm, a giant emerged. He was wreathed in lightning, and his eyes burned with celestial fire. He was the personification of the sky, and he was enraged. The giant lunged, his mace a blur of motion, smashed it into the ground, sending tremors through the earth. But Indra was ready. He sidestepped the attack and returned a blow of his own, mace meeting mace in a shower of sparks. The two warriors circled each other, each waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then the giant struck. He was fast, powerful, relentless. His every blow shook the earth, threatening to shatter it. But Indra was nimble. He dodged and weaved, his movements fluid and graceful, his counterattacks precise and powerful. He was not as strong as the sky, but he was quicker, more cunning. The battle raged for hours. The sky grew darker, the winds fiercer, the rain heavier. But still, Indra fought on, driven by the hope of ending the drought, of saving the people below. He knew that he was outmatched, that the sky was too powerful for him to defeat. But he also knew that he could not give up. He had challenged the sky, and he would see the fight through to the end. Then came a moment when the sky lowered his guard, when the relentless assault gave way to a hint of hesitation. It was just a moment, a fraction of a second, but it was all that Indra needed. He seized his chance and struck, his mace whistling through the air, connecting with the sky's shoulder. It was not a killing blow, but it was enough to make the giant roar in pain and anger. Indra pressed his attack, driving the sky back, forcing him to retreat into the clouds. The rain slowed, the wind died down, and the clouds parted to reveal the giant in his full glory. He was bruised and battered, his body marked with the scars of the battle. But he was still immensely powerful, and he was still very angry. The sky roared, and from his wounds more lightning sparked, more thunder boomed. He unleashed bolt after bolt, trying to smite the one who had dared to defy him. But Indra was ready. He raised his mace, and each strike sent a shower of sparks flying. He was not able to block the lightning, but he was able to dodge the worst of its fury. And as the sky exhausted himself, firing bolt after bolt into the earth, Indra knew his chance had come. He charged forward, his mace held high, his eyes blazing with determination. He was not going to defeat the sky. Couldn't do that. But he could end the drought, could bring rain to the thirsty earth. And that was enough. The sky saw him coming, and he tried to stop him, but it was too late. Indra's mace connected with the side of the giant's head, and the impact sent shockwaves through the air. The sky staggered, his eyes wide with surprise. And in that moment, something shifted. The anger in the sky's eyes was replaced by something else, something akin to respect. The sky reached out a hand, trying to steady himself, and in his voice there was no longer any trace of anger. Instead, there was a grudging admiration. "You have fought well, little god. You have earned the respect of the sky." And with that, the sky did something that no one thought possible. He smiled. It was not a cruel smile, nor a mocking one, but a genuine smile of appreciation. And as he did, the clouds parted and the sun broke through, bathing the earth in golden light. The rain stopped, the wind died down, and the clouds gathered in the distance, tinged with hues of orange and pink. It was as if the sky was giving way to a new dawn, acknowledging the return of balance to the world. From that day on, the drought never returned. The rains fell in due season, and the crops flourished. And the people looked up at the sky with newfound hope, remembering the tale of the warrior who had dared to defy the sky and bring them salvation. When you take up arms, do you fight for yourself or for others? And when you stand before the abyss, what do you hope to find on the other side? This is the story of Indra and Vritra. And this is the tale of the one warrior who dared to stand against an eternal night. Let's begin. Indra was an enigma. He was many things to many beings, but most of all, he was alone. When the gods spoke of him, their words dripped with scorn and pity, for they saw a lone warrior, a foolhardy soldier who attacked the invincible Vritra. They said he had no chance. He offered him no help. Each god clung to his own safety, for none could help Indra once he had crossed the threshold of the sacrifice. That was his burden and his alone. So in the end, when the gods abandoned him, he looked to mortals for aid. But they too were frightened, hiding behind their altars, cowering in their rituals, clinging to their scriptures. They also thought he had no chance. But some of them looked up at his lonely figure, his back heavy with the weight of the world, and hoped for a miracle, prayed for a savior. And in that moment, standing on the threshold of the sacrifice, he was both of these things, two different beings, a disappointment to some, a desperate hope to others. But to himself he was something else entirely. To himself, he was the warrior of the heavens. Yet remember, in that moment, there was only Indra alone, no vast army, no divine allies beside him. Only Soma in his veins, Vajra in his hand, and burning faith in his chest. To the gods he was reckless. To mortals he was fragile hope. But to himself, Indra was the warrior of the heavens, and that was enough. He laughed heartily, chest bare, lips still wet with the foam of Soma, and turned his face toward the darkness, where Vritra coiled, waiting. The entrance to the sacrifice gaped before him, an open wound in the fabric of existence, promising oblivion to all who entered. It smelled of death and dust and ages past. Looking into it was like staring into the heart of a dying star. Hot, bright, terrible. A low growl rumbled from its depths, shaking the ground beneath his feet. Then the earth split, and Vritra emerged. He was as tall as a mountain, wide as a forest, and the darkness of 1,000 nights clung to his form. The sky trembled at his approach. Storms scattered before him, and the winds hid in the rocks. All life cowered under his shadow, and even the sun hid its face in shame. If the gods had been here, they would have fled. If the demons had been here, they would have cheered. But there was no one. It was only Indra, alone, and then he struck. His Vajra blazed like the dawn. Its light tore through the darkness, splitting the night and searing the void. Then Vritra roared, and the mountains split. At his touch, the earth became a maelstrom, and the sky a furnace. Bolts of lightning seared through the air, crashing down on the earth, shattering the stones and boiling the soil. With each strike, Vritra grew stronger, feeding on the terror of all living beings. With each strike, the earth groaned louder, the sky cracked wider, and the fabric of existence grew thinner. And yet, despite the maelstrom around him, despite the void that clawed at his mind, despite the silence of the cosmos, he fought on. He moved like a phantom through the storm. His steps left no footprints in the boiling mud. His form cut through the lightning like a knife through fog. He danced with death and beckoned to oblivion, never faltering, never yielding. He fought on not for the gods, not for the mortals, but for himself. His blows were few, but each one landed true. His strikes were measured, precise, devastating. Like the surgeon who cuts away corruption from the bone, Indra purged the darkness with each strike of his vajra. But for every wound he inflicted, 2 more took his place. The darkness was endless, insatiable. And as the battle raged, he knew he could not win. He could not defeat an enemy that fed on his own despair. He could not triumph over an abyss that mirrored his own loneliness. Then, as the final bolts of lightning crashed around him, searing his flesh and shattering his bones, as the last echoes of the storm faded into the void, and as the darkness closed in around him, snuffing out the light of his vajra, he understood. Victory was not his to claim. Survival was not his to seek. This was a sacrifice, and he was not a warrior, but an offering. As the darkness consumed him, as the void embraced him, as the storm stilled around him, he found peace. Not the peace of the tranquil lake, not the peace of the sleeping sage, but the cold, hard peace of the warrior who has laid down his arms. In the stillness of the sacrifice, the echo of his laughter rang out, a challenge to the eternal night, a defiance to the endless void. A victory cry to the silent cosmos. Then everything went black. The darkness was absolute. The void was complete. And in the stillness, Vritra coiled, waiting. Now let's talk about why this story matters. Most stories about heroism are about a group of people overcoming impossible odds together. We root for the team. We cheer when they score. When they fall, we grieve. But sometimes heroes don't need a team. Sometimes they don't even want one. They go it alone, because that's who they are. They're loners. They're rebels. They're mavericks. They work in the shadows, play by their own rules, and answer to no one. And when the time comes, when the fate of the world hangs in the balance, they step up and face the darkness alone. Most of us are afraid of that kind of responsibility. We'd rather be part of a team, but sometimes there's no team. Sometimes you're the only one who can do what needs to be done. Sometimes you're the only one who can stand against the abyss and hurl your insignificant life into the darkness and hope for the best. You might think that's a crazy thing to do, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's the only sane thing left to do. So who is the hero in this story? Is it the team? No, it's the individual. Who is the villain? Is it the monster? No, it's the situation. What's the monster? The situation. The story isn't about good and evil. It's about what happens when you face the abyss and choose to jump. It's about the courage it takes to do what must be done. It's about the strength it takes to face your fears and the world's expectations and do what you believe is right. We all face our own vrits in life. Some of us face them every day. We wake up and we know we have to do something even though we're terrified. We face our doubts and our fears and our insecurities, and we keep moving forward. That's what it means to be a hero. It doesn't mean having superpowers or being part of a team or being celebrated by everyone. It just means doing the right thing even when you're scared. And that's why this story matters. It reminds us that we're all heroes in our own way. We all face our own vrits in life. And when we do, we have to summon our inner warrior. The warrior that's always inside us, waiting for the moment when we need it the most. So the next time you face your fears, the next time you step outside your comfort zone, the next time you do something brave, remember the warrior of the heavens. Remember the one who dared to stand against the eternal night and hurl his insignificant life into the darkness and hope for the best, because that's what heroes do. That's what we do. We hope for the best. They say that the very moment Indra took his first step, heaven and earth shifted. Clouds billowed, winds rose in torrents, as though the entire cosmos watched one who had just dared to challenge destiny. His footfall boomed like thunder, and for the first time, the darkness seemed to falter. No more silence. No more fear. The world now had one who dared to laugh in Vritra's face. That name was Indra. When the humans and demons churned the sea of milk, the demons got the upper hand. And when they did, they churned out a poison so deadly that it burned all life on earth and made the sea of milk turn black. Only a few survived, and one of them was a young boy named Urawadi. She raised her head slowly, her eyes meeting those of the mighty demon king Bali. But she wasn't afraid anymore because this child was no longer the same. The churning of the sea of milk had changed her. It had ignited a spark of divinity within her. And with that, she declared that she would take revenge for what the demons had done. Her words echoed with power. "I shall be known as a deity, and from my womb shall rise the destroyer of the demons, the one who will wash away their sins." Then she disappeared. And soon after, gods and demons began searching for her, each wanting her for themselves. They searched for many years until one day the sage Kashyapa found her in a cave. He welcomed her like a daughter and became her adoptive father. And over time, Aditi gave birth to twins, two sons whose destinies were intertwined with the fate of the cosmos itself. The elder was named Indragna, or simply Indra, and the younger, the firebrand, the fierce one, was named Vu. But before we continue, let me ask you a question. When you hear the word war, what comes to your mind? Destruction, chaos, violence?
Oh.
Well, we want to change that perception. Because war, as we see it, is also about strategy, unity, courage, and resilience. That's why we are excited to announce our partnership with Wargaming, a company that has been creating engaging and immersive war experiences for more than 10 years. Their games allow you to explore various historical periods and battle across iconic locations. If you love strategy games, then check out the latest release, World of Tanks, where you can command over 600 tanks in dynamic battles and join a team to fight against enemy forces. Now back to the story. The two brothers grew up hearing stories of the great churning, of the darkness that had fallen upon the world, and of their mother's prophecy. From a young age, they knew they were destined for greatness. Indra was born with a mace already in his hands, while Vayu could calm the fiercest storms with just a breath. Even when they were young, everyone could tell that these boys were not ordinary. As they grew older, their powers grew too. Indra mastered the use of the Vajra, the thunderbolt, a weapon of immense power that could shake the foundations of the cosmos. Meanwhile, Val learned to harness the power of the wind, becoming one with the storms. And yet, despite their extraordinary abilities, they remained humble. They trained tirelessly, honing their skills, always aware of the responsibility that lay ahead. For they knew that one day they would have to face the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. Then the day came when they were summoned by the gods. The celestial court was in turmoil. The demons were growing stronger, and the gods were divided. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to flee. But in the midst of the chaos, Aditi stood tall. She looked at her sons, her eyes filled with pride and determination. "My sons," she said, "the time has come. You were born for this moment. The darkness that threatens our world is deep and vast. But you, my sons, are its undoing. You are the light that will banish the shadows." As the twins listened to their mother's words, a surge of power coursed through their veins. This was their destiny, their raison d'etre. Indra the elder nodded first, his gaze unwavering, then Vu the younger, the firebrand. He met his mother's eyes and roared, "Mother, I am ready!" And so the twins set out on their quest. The journey was long and fraught with peril. They faced many challenges, each testing their strength and resolve. But through it all, the brothers stood side by side. They fought as one, their powers complementing each other perfectly. Indra's thunderous blows shook the heavens, while Vayu's swift, silent strikes caught the demons off guard. Together, they were unstoppable. And finally, they reached the heart of darkness, where the demon king Bali and his minions awaited them. The battle that followed was epic. The sky trembled as Indra unleashed the full force of his thunderbolt. Mountains crumbled under Voyu's tempestuous assault. The very air crackled with the energy of their confrontation. It was a battle not just of strength but of wills. Demons, driven by their primordial fears, fought with a desperate ferocity. But against the combined might of the divine twins, their resistance was in vain. Yet even in the heat of battle, a sense of foreboding hung over the twins. They felt it in their bones that defeating Bali would only be the beginning, for they knew that there existed an entity even more powerful than Bali. A being whose name struck terror into the hearts of gods and demons alike, the embodiment of darkness itself, Vritra. So it was with a heavy sense of duty that the twins turned towards the source of the ominous energy. There, lurking in the shadows, they saw him. Vritra, the darkness incarnate, was taking form. His eyes, twin suns of malevolence, surveyed the battlefield. His presence alone seemed to snuff out the very essence of light. Indra, ever the strategist, raised his vajra high, its tip aimed directly at Vritra. "You are the source of this darkness," his voice boomed, echoing with divine authority. "Your reign of terror ends today?" But Vritra only laughed, a sound that scraped against their souls like nails on a chalkboard. "Indra," he hissed, "you speak with the bravado of youth. Do you truly think you can defeat me? I am the primordial darkness, the antithesis of light. I am eternal." As the twins braced for the ensuing battle, a thought struck Indra. Could this darkness be banished? Or was it a force that could only be contained, never destroyed? But before he could ponder further, Vritra was upon them. The darkness surged, coiling around them like a python, trying to squeeze out their light. Not in that moment of peril, Vu acted. With a roar that shook the cosmos, he channeled every ounce of his power into a single, devastating attack. The wind screamed, carrying with it the fury of 1,000 tempests. It tore through the darkness, leaving a gaping wound in its wake. Light flooded in, momentarily banishing the shadows. And in that brief moment of clarity, Indra seized his chance. With a mighty swing, he brought the Vajra down, striking the core of Vritra's being. A blinding flash of light erupted, momentarily turning day into night. When the light subsided, Vritra was gone, vanished into the abyss from whence he came. As the echoes of the battle faded, a profound silence descended. The twins stood amidst the ruins of the battlefield, the weight of what they had just accomplished settling upon them. They had banished the darkness, at least for now. But the battle with Vritra had shaken them to their core. They had seen the depths of primordial evil, the endless abyss of darkness that seemed to lurk at the heart of existence. Yet even in the face of such overwhelming darkness, they had held firm. They had fought not just with weapons of light and thunder, but with the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood, of strategy, of unwavering resolve. In the annals of time, their names would be etched in light, forever reminding the cosmos of the day the twins saved the world. Now tell us in the comments, what do you think? How do you feel about the way the story ended? We're eager to hear your thoughts. And if you've enjoyed this tale, we invite you to show your support. Your likes fuel our creativity, driving us to craft more captivating stories for you, so don't hold back. Hit that like button, and let us know in the comments which characters you'd like to see featured in our next adventure. We read every comment, and your feedback means the world to us. Thank you for being a part of our journey. When you think of great myths and legends, what comes to mind? Perhaps tales of adventure, bravery, or maybe even magic. But have you ever thought of myths and legends as a way of understanding our world? Today we are going to explore just that. Our story begins in the vast expanse of the sky where the celestial beings reside. Among them is a powerful deity named Indra. He holds immense power over the elements, particularly the weather. For countless years he has watched over the world, keeping it in balance. But recently something unusual has been happening. The world below has been experiencing an extended period without rain. Crops have withered, rivers have run dry, and people have started to lose hope. It's so bad that even the gods have taken notice. They're worried that if this continues, it could destroy the world. One day, Odin, the supreme ruler of the gods, calls a meeting, addresses all the assembled deities, expressing his deep concern about the drought. The land, he says, is parched, and the people are suffering. They need rain. But none of the other gods volunteer to intervene. Rain is controlled by the weather god, and he has been ignoring his godly duties for quite some time now. Not even Brihaspati, the wisest and most revered of the gods, can persuade him to take action. As the meeting drags on, all hope seems to be lost. Then suddenly, Indra stands up. His eyes are blazing with determination, and he announces that he will do whatever it takes to end this drought. He will find the weather god and bring him back to Asgard, the realm of the gods, so that he can resume his responsibilities. The other gods cheer at his words, and they send him off on his quest. Indra sets out immediately, traveling across the vast expanse of the sky to find the weather god. He searches far and wide, but the weather god is nowhere to be found. Finally, he hears a rumor that leads him to a remote corner of the universe. There, hidden away from the prying eyes of the gods and the mortals, he finds the weather god. But he is not what Indra expected. What once mighty deity has become weak and frail. He is surrounded by decaying flowers and wilted plants, all casualties of his neglect. Indra is taken aback by the sorry state of the weather god. He approaches him cautiously and tries to persuade him to return to Asgard. But the weather god refuses. He is too ashamed of his inaction to face the other gods. And so Indra is forced to take matters into his own hands. He reaches out and grabs the weather god by the collar, lifting him up and carrying him back to Asgard. The other gods are overjoyed to see him return, and they shower him with praise and adoration. But the weather god remains ashamed and unrepentant. He refuses to take his place in the pantheon of gods, and he turns his back on the world he is supposed to protect. And so it falls to Indra to take over the weather god's duties. And let me tell you, he does it in style. Our next scene takes us to the realm of the giants. Here lives a fearsome beast known as Vritra. He is a demon of drought and destruction, and he takes great pleasure in causing chaos and suffering to the mortals below. But with Indra at the helm of the weather gods, Vritra's reign of terror is about to come to an end. For when Indra assumes control of the weather gods, his first order of business is to confront Vritra. He unleashes his full power upon the demon, sending him fleeing in terror. As Vritra runs away, Indra pursues him relentlessly. The two of them engage in a fierce battle that shakes the very foundations of the universe. But in the end, it is Indra who prevails, defeats Vritra, and banishes him from the world, ending his reign of terror once and for all. But that's not all. Indra does not stop there. Instead, he takes pity on the suffering mortals and decides to bless them with rain. He opens up the gates of heaven and sends down torrents of water. The rain pours down on the thirsty land, bringing with it the promise of a bountiful harvest and an end to the drought. The mortals rejoice at Indra's generosity, and they offer up prayers and sacrifices to thank him for his kindness, and so it goes. Through the actions of one god, the balance of the world is restored. The drought ends, the crops grow, and the people prosper. And although the weather god is absent, the world continues to turn, sustained by the efforts of those who step up to fill his shoes. This myth may seem like a simple tale of good triumphing over evil, but it contains some deep and profound lessons. Let's take a closer look. One of the most important themes in this myth is the importance of balance. The world is kept in balance by the weather god, and when he neglects his duties, it throws the world into chaos. This teaches us that in order for our world to function properly, we need to keep it in balance. We need to take care of the environment and use our resources wisely. Otherwise, like the world in this myth, we risk throwing it into chaos. Another important theme is the importance of responsibility. The weather god is responsible for providing rain for the world, but he shirks his duties and hides away. This teaches us that we all have responsibilities in life, and when we shirk those responsibilities, bad things happen. It's just like the drought that ravaged the land because the weather god refused to do his job. However, this myth also teaches us the importance of forgiveness and redemption. Despite the weather god's inaction, Indra does not hold a grudge. He understands that the weather god is suffering from a mental health problem and needs help. So instead of punishing him, he takes over the weather god's duties and helps him to recover. This teaches us that we should not be quick to judge or punish others. We should try to understand their problems and help them to overcome them. The myth also highlights the importance of courage and determination. When Indra sets out to find the weather god, he faces many obstacles and dangers, but he never gives up. He is determined to restore balance to the world, and he is willing to sacrifice anything to achieve that goal. This teaches us that we should never give up in the face of adversity. We should always strive to make the world a better place, no matter how difficult it may seem. Finally, the myth emphasizes the importance of selflessness and generosity. When Indra defeats Vritra, he could have easily claimed victory and moved on. But instead, he takes pity on the suffering mortals and blesses them with rain. He does not ask for anything in return, and he does it simply because it is the right thing to do. This teaches us that we should always be willing to help others, especially those who are less fortunate than us. In conclusion, this myth is more than just a simple tale of good triumphing over evil. It is a profound lesson on how we should live our lives. It teaches us to seek balance in all things, to take responsibility for our actions, to forgive and show mercy to others, to be courageous and determined in the face of adversity, and to be selfless and generous towards others. These are timeless lessons that we can all learn from. And that is why this myth has been passed down through generations for so long. So the next time you hear this myth, remember that it is not just a story, it is a lesson on how to live a virtuous and fulfilling life. Now before we go, I want to ask you a question. How do you think this myth explains the importance of taking care of the environment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe for more content like this. It's raining heavily today. Let's see if we can find a dry place to sit and tell a story. So this is the third day of our storytelling session. And if you're new here, welcome. Come and join us. We gather here every day for a week in a virtual space to listen to stories, to talk about them, and to share our thoughts and feelings. If you've been here before, then welcome back. It's good to see you again. Please take a seat wherever you like. The pot is always open for tea and coffee. If you'd like some water, there's a spring nearby. Today's story comes from India. It is called Indra Slays Vritra. Once upon a time, Indra came to the mountain where Vritra lay coiled within a cavern. That cave was like a door into the abyss. From afar, mortals saw black clouds nodding into a vast whirl and shuddered. There, that is the lair of Vritra, the dragon. The dragon who was the enemy of mankind, the destroyer of the world, the bringer of darkness and death. Even the gods feared him. But Indra, he was not afraid of Vritra. He was going to kill him, yes, but how? Couldn't get to him through the door of the cave. It was blocked by the dragon's massive bulk. But then Indra noticed a crack in the rock above the entrance, just big enough for him to squeeze through. He crawled through the crack and found himself in a tunnel behind the mountain. On the other side, he could see the sea stretching out before him like a mirror, reflecting the dark storm clouds overhead. A wide beach lay below him, empty and deserted. Indra landed on it and began to walk away, keeping an eye on the cave. Every now and then, he heard a deep, rolling sound welled up from the cave, like the distant rumble of thunder. And after a while, he saw what it was. It was Vritra coming out of the cave, slowly at first, then faster and faster, like a huge black snake made of smoke. With each step he took, the ground shook beneath his feet. His eyes blazed with a fierce light, and his mouth was filled with sharp fangs, dripping venom. His claws were like hooks, and his tail was thick and strong. The mere sight of him filled Indra with dread. He knew that Vritra would kill him if he got close enough. So he kept his distance, watching as the dragon approached, his heart pounding in his chest. When Vritra was almost upon him, Indra threw his spear. It hit the dragon's leg and bounced off as if it had struck stone. Vritra roared in anger and swiped at Indra with one of his claws. The wind from its motion blew Indra off his feet, knocking him down into the sand. He rolled over, coughing and spluttering, and scrambled to his feet. Suddenly, the dragon lunged at him, jaws wide open, ready to devour him whole. But Indra was too quick for him. He dodged out of the way and rolled to the side, watching as Vritra crashed to the ground, kicking up sand and dust. The dragon shook himself, sending tiny pebbles flying, and reared up on his hind legs, ready to attack again. But every time he moved, the ground cracked and crumbled beneath him. Then Indra realized that the dragon was weakening. He could feel it in his bones, see it in his eyes. The dragon was tired, so tired that he could barely move, so weak that he could barely breathe. And as Indra watched, he saw the dragon collapse onto the sand, his chest heaving up and down in ragged gasps. Ash! He tried to get up, but he couldn't. His legs were too heavy, his wings too weak. Indra knew that now was his chance to strike the final blow, to end the dragon's life and save his people from his wrath. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, pulled his bow, and shot an arrow right into the dragon's heart. The dragon roared one last time, a sound that echoed across the sky, shaking the very foundations of the earth, and then he died. The ground beneath him cracked and split open, and the sea rushed in, swallowing him whole. The waves crashed against the shore, washing away all trace of the dragon, as if he had never been there at all. The sky cleared and the sun came out, casting its warm glow over the land. The birds sang, and the flowers bloomed, and the people came out of their homes to celebrate. They danced and sang and made merry, for they were free from the dragon's tyranny. And so it was that Indra slew the dragon Vritra and saved the world. But wait, there's more. As the dragon was dying, he spat out a ball of fire, and that fire fell to the ground and became a lake. The lake was filled with magical water that had the power to cure any illness and heal any wound. And ever since that day, people have come from all over the world to bathe in the lake and be healed. Okay, let's think about this story. What do you think the moral of this story is? What lesson do you think it teaches us? What is the main idea? This story is about courage, bravery, facing your fears and doing what is right, no matter how difficult it may be. The story also teaches us that even the most powerful and fearsome creatures can be defeated with courage and determination. It also teaches us that good will always triumph over evil. You know, when I was listening to this story, I couldn't help but think of the many dragons that we face in our lives. Dragons that seem to be invincible, that seem to be beyond our reach. But the story reminds us that we can overcome any dragon if we are brave enough, if we are determined enough. What dragons do you face in your life? What challenges seem too great for you to handle? I'd love to hear about them. Don't be afraid to share your thoughts. We're all here to support each other. Now, let's move on to another activity. If you could change one thing about the story, what would it be? Maybe you'd make the dragon a little less scary. Or maybe you'd give Indra some new powers. Maybe you'd make the dragon more friendly. Or maybe you'd give him a reason to attack humans. Maybe you'd change the ending. What would you change and why? I'm really interested to hear your ideas. Okay, it's time for the final activity. In pairs or small groups, create a short scene based on one part of the story. You can act it out, draw it, or write it. You decide. Here's an example. Scene 2. Indra stands on the beach watching the approaching dragon. Vritra. He takes aim and fires his spear. The spear bounces off Vritra's leg. Vritra. Who goes there? Show yourself. Indra. It's me, Indra. I've come to slay you, dragon. Vritra. Slay me. You can't defeat me, mortal. I am the mightiest of all dragons, Indra. We'll see about that. Indra fires his second spear. The spear hits its mark, and Vritra roars in pain. All right, that's our story for today. Thank you for listening and participating. Hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. If you did, please leave a like. If you have any suggestions or comments, please leave them below. And if you're interested in hearing more stories, please subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow with another great story. The giant's laughter boomed again, shaking the foundations of the world. The mortals below looked up at Indra, their king of gods, and saw his head bowed. Was their champion defeated already? Had the demon's curse prevailed? They had looked to him with such hope, and now? Some fell to their knees, others hid their faces in their hands, unable to bear the thought that all was lost. But Indra did not retreat. No, he did not. Stood firm, his chin lifted, his eyes blazing. And then something incredible happened. He laughed. Yes, the king of gods laughed, a sound that cut through the din, a sound that shook the heavens themselves. And as he laughed, he lifted his vajra high above his head, and the lightning cleaved the night, jagged and white as the first streak of dawn. His hair streamed out behind him in the gale, his eyes blazed like twin suns, and he cried out, his voice rolling like a storm across the heavens. And the sound of his voice, the very sound of it, brought courage to the hearts of the mortals. They lifted up their heads, and they listened. What did their king say? What was it that shook the very foundations of the earth? What was it that made the demon king pause in his advance? These are the words that he spoke, these immortal words that have echoed through the ages. Said ash may fall, but thunder never bows. As he spoke, the vajra in his hand blazed, and a great wind, a whirlwind it seemed, burst from the pores of his skin. His clothes, they were like flames, and his form shone forth in all its majesty. And then he hurled his weapon, not at the demon, no, not yet, but into the earth. And where the vajra touched the earth, a great crack appeared, a a fissure that split the land and heaved the waters of the ocean up into the sky. And as the waters rose, they became a stairway of shimmering light that reached up to the heavens. And on that stairway there descended, who else but the gods? The gods had been watching from afar, and now they came to their king's aid, eager to fight for their home, for their abode in the upper worlds. They came down in their celestial cars, some in chariots of fire, some in chariots of light, and they descended upon the demon host. The demons, they fought valiantly, but they were overcome by the might of the gods. And when the tide of battle turned, when the demons saw their doom approaching, what did they do? Did they flee? Did they turn and run from the coming storm? No, they did not. The demon king's words echoed in their ears, "Be brave, O my warriors, for even in death there is glory." And so they fought till the end, till the last man, till the last demon stood his ground. And when the earth was silent, when the dust had settled and the smoke cleared, the victors stood surveying their domain. The king of gods, Indra, he stood tall, his vajra held high, his face grave. The other gods, they were jubilant, their voices rang with triumph, but Indra, he knew the cost of victory. He looked down at the earth, and his heart ached, for the demon's curse had come true. The land lay in ruins, the cities were in ashes, the fields were barren. And he knew that it would take more than divine intervention to restore it to its former glory. It would take time, a lot of time. It would take patience, hard work, and most of all, it would take faith. Faith in oneself, faith in one's abilities, and above all, faith in the goodness of the world. And so, dear listener, remember the words of the mighty Indra: ash may fall, but thunder never bows. For as long as there is darkness in the world, there will always be the need for light. And as long as there is evil, there will always be the need for a hero. A hero who stands up against the darkness, who fights for what is right, who never gives up, who never retreats. It's a hero who, like Indra, faces the demons of the world and says, "I will not be cowed. I will not be defeated. I will stand firm, and I will fight." A terrifying demon was standing before them, blocking their path forward. His body stretched like a mountain range from north to south, as though trying to encircle the whole earth. A single sinuous turn of his immense bulk pressed the trees around him flat, crushing the forest into a green carpet. From between those coils, eyes burned with red fire, twin pits of molten lava, and from his nostrils poured forth a breath that scorched the air, curling into white vapor that writhed like a tormented spirit. The stench was acrid, a reek of sulfur and death. Above it all, his head reared high, fangs flashing like blades drawn and ready to strike. Before him stood Indra, king of the gods, god of the storm. And beside him the youthful hero Puta, whose heart burned with righteous anger, and whose hand clutched a flaming torch. Vritra had spoken. His voice was not merely sound, but a tangible thing, dark and heavy as oil, pressing down upon the world to make it tremble. It was a voice that brooked no answer, demanded only obedience. Far below, in the villages nestled amongst the mountains, mortal hearts seemed to stop. Even the watching gods could not help but shiver. Mighty Thor, he who wielded the hammer, son of Odin and the giant, he too felt a prickle of fear crawl up his neck. He squeezed the hammer tighter, knuckles whitening. Beside him, Heimdall, guardian of the Rainbow Bridge, whose duty was to watch over all the 9 worlds. He swallowed hard and gripped his staff more tightly. Never had he seen such power displayed by any of the Vanara.
Ow!
Even the wind held its breath, afraid to stir and set the demon's wrath aflame. And then the flames burst forth, licking at the sky, reaching for the sun and the moon, dancing wildly in the air. Above, the heavens split open, sending forth bolts of lightning as thick as mountain ash. They split the darkness, illuminating a face twisted in terrible anger. Below, in the flickering light, a young hero stood firm, his jaw set, his eyes blazing. Indra, boomed the demon, his voice like grinding stones. "Did you truly dare to come alone?" A flicker of amusement crossed Vritra's features. "With wine in your belly and a spark in your hand, you think to stand against me? You would bar my path and keep me from my rightful place. Fools, all of you, are doomed to be cast to the flames. You will be ash beneath this eternal night." Each word was a hammer blow, ringing with power, echoing with menace. Beneath the weight of the voice, the world seemed to bend. But Indra did not flinch. He stood firm, his eyes locked onto the demon, his grip tightening on the Vajra, the thunderbolt that crackled with divine power. Around them, the air grew hot, shimmering with heat waves. The very ground trembled, threatening to split asunder. The demon stirred, coiling and uncoiling, his vast form shifting restlessly. Then he lunged. In a blink he was upon them, his massive fist hurtling towards the two figures who stood dwarfed before him. They danced aside, barely escaping the crushing blow that would have shattered mountains and split the earth. And as they dodged, Vritra roared in frustration, his fiery eyes blazing with an infernal light. His bulk was too great for the narrow paths between the trees. So he smashed his way through the forest, uprooting ancient oaks and throwing them aside like twigs. Each step shook the ground, sending tremors through the earth. But amidst the crashing of trees and the splintering of wood, the two figures moved with a grace that belied the terror that gnawed at their hearts. As Vritra surged forward, pushing aside ancient trees as if they were saplings, Indra and Patna pressed onward. Their breaths mingled with the steam rising from the demon's flanks, carrying the scent of ozone and singed flesh. Every muscle in their bodies was tensed, every nerve alert. Behind them, the forest fell silent, holding its breath, waiting. Vritra spun, his bulk momentarily revealing a glimpse of the opening beyond. Sunlight streamed through, painting the clearing in a golden light. There, nestled amidst the trees, lay a pool of water, its surface still and serene. Around it, the air hummed with a power that was ancient and profound. This was the source of all life, the keeper of the primordial waters, the one they had come to awaken. But first, they must pass through the demon's gate. And the demon was upon them, barring their way, his eyes burning with molten fire. His massive fists rained down, each blow shaking the ground, each impact sending shock waves through the air. But the two figures were swift and sure-footed, dodging and weaving, their movements fluid and precise. With each blow that missed, Vritra's anger grew, his roars echoing through the forest. The earth trembled, the trees swayed, and the very sky seemed to darken in response to his rage. As he lunged again, Indra and Patana knew they could not hold out much longer. And so, when Vritra was upon them, his form blocking the light, his breath scorching their faces, Putana struck. With a speed that belied his youth, he danced between the demon's massive arms, his tiny form a blur. He reached out, his hand a whisper of motion, and touched the tip of the demon's horn with his flaming torch. A moment there was only the hiss of burning flesh and the smell of scorched horn. Then Vritra screamed, a sound that ripped through the forest, shattering the peace, tearing at the very fabric of the world. He thrashed, his huge form convulsing, his eyes rolling wildly in his sockets. The forest fell silent, watching in awe as the mighty demon writhed before them. The touch of the flame had ignited a primal fear within him, terror that gnawed at his core and threatened to consume him entirely. His massive frame began to shrink, his bulk condensing, his form twisting, contorting. With each passing moment, the demon became smaller, weaker, his power ebbing away like the tide. He stumbled, crashing through the undergrowth, his legs giving way beneath his diminishing bulk. The ground trembled with each step until finally he collapsed, his form reduced to that of a man, though still vastly larger than any mortal. His horns were sheared, his eyes dimmed, his chest heaving as he struggled to draw breath. As the demon gasped for breath, his gaze fell upon the pool nestled amidst the trees. In a last-ditch effort to regain his lost power, he lurched forward, stumbling over roots and rocks. Reaching the pool, he plunged his head into the water, drinking deeply. For a moment, the water rippled around him, disturbed by the demon's intrusion. But then a calm settled over the pool once more. The water stilled, reflecting the sky like a mirror, its surface untouched by the demon's desperate attempt to regain his strength. He lifted his head, his eyes blazing with renewed anger, his mouth twisted into a snarl. But his voice was now a mere shadow of its former power. "You may have won this day," he rasped, his words barely audible, "but this is but a respite. I shall return, and when I do, all of you shall burn." That final threat hanging in the air, he vanished. The forest remained silent, the only sound, the gentle lapping of water from the pool. And as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the leaves, two figures emerged from the trees, their faces grim, their steps purposeful. They walked towards the pool, their gazes fixed on the rippling water, their minds already planning for the coming battle. It's a strange thing to realize just how much mythology you have inside your head, because sometimes it feels like, I could just open a webpage at random and write something and it would just flow out of me. So today we're going to do exactly that. We're going to take a webpage at random. Okay, so I found this Wikipedia article on the deification of Gunga, which is an interesting topic, but one that I am not particularly familiar with. I know that Gunga is a major goddess in Hinduism, but I don't really know anything about her worship. Oh, here goes nothing. In that instant, heaven and earth seemed to hold their breath. The wind paused, the clouds knotted tighter, awaiting the break. Indra alone, bare-chested, the thunder weapon in his grasp, Soma foam still on his lips, faced Vritra, devourer of rivers, sovereign of darkness. Mortals looked up and murmured, This is the fated battle." High above, the gods, though they dared not descend, beat with racing hearts. Some whispered, "Will he truly prevail? If he fails, light will vanish forever." Now that's certainly a dramatic start to a story. And I didn't even have to think about that for more than a few seconds before I could just type it out. That's because these stories are all in my head. I've been consuming mythology for most of my life now. I've read hundreds, if not thousands, of books and articles on the subject. I've watched countless videos, and of course I've listened to hundreds of hours of mythology podcasts. All of that is kind of just melded together into this big, beautiful mess that is my brain, and I can just draw from that well of knowledge whenever I need to. But that doesn't mean I'm not still learning. Oh no, I am constantly learning new things about mythology and folklore, and I wanted to share that love of learning with you guys. The purpose of this channel is to delve deep into the world of mythology and folklore, and hopefully learn something along the way. We explore creation myths, hero journeys, monsters, and mayhem. Basically, if it's old, weird, and wonderful, then chances are I will cover it. Now I say we because I don't do all of this alone. Sure, this channel started out as a solo project, but nowadays I have a team of awesome co-creators who help make all of this happen. We have our writers, our editors, our researchers, and of course our voice actors who all come together to make these videos possible. We love what we do, and we hope you enjoy watching as much as we enjoy making it. So join us on this journey through the strange and wonderful world of mythology and folklore, and let us learn something new together. But wait, there's more. The app also offers a huge range of other features to help you learn languages, including games, exercises, and a built-in dictionary. It's a super easy way to learn a language, whether you want to brush up on your Spanish or learn some basic French phrases. Plus, Babbel lessons are bite-sized, so you can learn on the go, whether you have 10 minutes or 30 minutes. I know that when it comes to learning languages, consistency is key. But hey, it's not just about learning new languages. It's also about exploring your cultural heritage and connecting with other people. I myself have been using Babbel to brush up on my French, and it's been a great experience. So if you want to learn a new language, brush up on a forgotten one, or just explore your cultural heritage, then definitely check out Babbel. Thanks to Babbel for supporting this video and channel. And now let's get back to the story. As the god King Indra stood poised to slay the demon Vritra, a hush fell over the assembled deities. They watched with bated breath as the wielder of the thunderbolt prepared to unleash its full force. In that heart-stopping moment, the fate of the cosmos hung in the balance, the very existence of light itself teetering on a knife edge. Would Indra emerge victorious, or would darkness envelop the universe in eternal night? With every fiber of his being, the powerful monarch channeled his celestial energy into the thunderous weapon, its potential power humming within his grasp. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as he prepared to deliver a resounding blow that would shake the foundations of the heavens and earth. A heavy silence descended upon the onlookers, broken only by the soft murmur of their hushed whispers. Their gazes were fixed intently on the God King, their eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and apprehension. Some among them clutched each other's hands, their knuckles turning white as their nails dug into their companions' arms. Others closed their eyes tight, their lips forming silent prayers as they besieged the divine powers for mercy and deliverance. Every heartbeat echoed in the stillness, amplifying the tension that gripped the onlookers' souls. For in this pivotal moment, the very essence of their existence was at stake. The outcome of this confrontation between light and darkness, between order and chaos, would reverberate throughout eternity. And as the weight of this realization settled upon them, the mortals stood transfixed, their fates intertwined with the celestial drama unfolding above. High above, seated on his celestial throne, the Supreme Leader surveyed the scene before him. His gaze sharp and penetrating, missed nothing, his expression inscrutable. As the God King prepared to unleash the full force of his thunderous weapon, the Supreme Leader's eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze flickering with a hint of anticipation. Despite his outward composure, a storm of emotions raged within him. He had placed great importance on this task, entrusting the fate of the cosmos to the prowess of his chosen champion. And now, witnessing the culmination of Indra's efforts, his heart pounded with a warrior's excitement. Years of planning, strategizing, and preparation had led to this moment, and the Supreme Leader felt a surge of pride in the strength and courage of his warriors. But beneath this resolute exterior, a deep-seated worry gnawed at him. The threat posed by the demon Vritra was immense, and the Supreme Leader knew that victory was far from assured. With a deep breath, he banished these fleeting doubts from his mind, focusing anew on the spectacle before him. As long as Indra stood defiant against the encroaching darkness, hope endured. And with that thought, the Supreme Leader straightened his regal bearing, readying himself to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Meanwhile, the God of Wisdom, seated serenely amidst the celestial throng, observed the unfolding events with keen insight. His gaze, sharp and penetrating, missed nothing. Despite the gravity of the situation, a serene smile played on his lips, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. While others trembled with anticipation, he remained composed, his faith in the divine plan unwavering. As the God King prepared to strike his fatal blow, the God of Wisdom lowered his eyelids slightly, as if in meditation, his expression one of quiet contemplation. Within his vast knowledge, he saw the threads of fate intertwining, leading towards an outcome that, though shrouded in uncertainty, ultimately aligned with the cosmic order. A sense of calm settled over him, a quiet confidence that the unfolding drama would ultimately serve the greater good. And as the battle raged on, the God of Wisdom continued to observe his tranquil demeanor, a beacon of peace amidst the maelstrom of chaos and destruction. But not all the deities shared the same level of composure. Among them sat the goddess of dawn, her form radiant, her eyes sparkling with celestial fire. Yet despite her ethereal beauty, a deep-seated anxiety clouded her features. As the God King braced for the momentous clash, her heart pounded in her chest, mirroring the tumultuous battle unfolding before their celestial audience. The goddess of dawn, tasked with ushering light into the darkness, understood the dire consequences of failure. Should the demon prevail and plunge the cosmos into eternal night, her very existence would be extinguished. Fear threatened to consume her, paralyzing her with dread at the prospect of oblivion. Yet she fought against this rising tide of panic, drawing strength from the unwavering courage displayed by the God King. With a determined glint in her eyes, she banished her fears, choosing instead to focus on the imminent dawn that awaited. As the battle reached its climax, the goddess of dawn stood resolute, her spirit unyielding in the face of encroaching darkness. Thus it was that a multitude of deities, each with their unique perspectives and emotions, bore witness to the epic struggle between light and darkness. From the Supreme Leader's resolute determination to the God of Wisdom's serene contemplation, and the Goddess of Dawn's valiant struggle against fear, their reactions mirrored the profound impact this battle had on the very fabric of their existence. Now we reach the end of part 1 of this epic tale. Join us next time as the battle between light and darkness rages and the fate of the cosmos hangs in the balance. Don't miss out on the next thrilling installment. Subscribe now and never miss an episode. Till then, may the light of wisdom guide you, and the courage of heroes inspire you to face your own battles with bravery. Once upon a time, there lived a mighty king named Muchukunda. Now, the king was very worried. His kingdom was about to be destroyed. There was no doubt in his mind. For who would save it? He had no son. And so he called for his daughter, the beautiful Princess Jayanti. "Oh, father," she asked, "what has happened?" "Why are you so troubled?" The king replied, our kingdom is in peril. We have no heir. Who will carry on our bloodline after we're gone? The princess said. I've heard rumors that the king of Kashi desires me. Father, you must accept his proposal. Then there will be no end to our lineage, the king agreed. But now a problem arose. The king of Kashi was a devotee of the god Vishnu, while they worshipped the god Shiva. So the princess had to go through a sacred ritual to convert her bad karma to good karma. And as she walked into the temple, she saw an extraordinary sight. A handsome youth was levitating in the air. His skin shone like gold. His hair stood on end like a crown of thorns. And as he descended from the heavens, the princess fell in love with him. Who was he? No one knew. One day, however, the king asked his daughter, "Who is this youth who has come from the heavens? Why have you fallen in love with him?" The princess replied, "Father, I don't know who he is. But when I gaze at him, my heart melts and my soul takes flight." The king did not like her answer, but he himself was curious. And so, disguised as a sage, he went to the youth and asked him, "Who are you? How did you come here?" The young man turned around and said, "I am the god Indra. I came here riding my elephant Aravata." He then looked at the king and added, "And who are you, O stranger? How dare you question the thunder god?" The king replied, "I am just a simple sage." But Indra did not believe him. And so he challenged the supposed sage to a game. "If you win, I will grant you a boon. But if I win, you will have to do as I say." The king agreed. The game was simple. They had to take turns stepping on these 7 stones. Whichever god remained on the ground after 7 steps would win. Thunder pealed, lightning flared and tore the sky to rags. It was no longer a mortal tread, but the footfall of the thunder god, the step that opens the duel of light and darkness, life and annihilation. Vritra roared, coiling to crush the challenger. Indra tightened his hold on the Vajra. His smile still burned, his eyes aflame. The heavens erupted. The battle began. With each step, the power of the gods increased tenfold. And by the 3rd step, Vritra was already exhausted. Indra's attacks grew fiercer. He let out a mighty roar that shook the 3 worlds. And with his 4th step, he smashed the demon king's protective shield. By the 5th step, Vritra could barely stand. And with his 6th step, Indra crushed the demon king's pride. Finally, with his 7th and last step, Indra shattered the demon king's armies. Vritra fell to his knees, defeated. Indra was about to deliver the final blow when suddenly he stopped, looked at Vritra and said, "You have fought well, demon king.
Ice.
So, I will give you one last chance.
Ice.
Tell me, who has sent you to fight against me? Who is your master?" Vritra replied, "You have defeated me, god of the Devas. My master is none other than the great king of the Nagas, Bali." Indra was taken aback. He had not expected this. Bali was his uncle, the brother of his father, the great Prajapati, and he had always been kind to the gods. Why would he fight against them? And why would he send Vritra to fight against him? Indra decided to find out. And so he went to Bali and asked him why he was fighting against the gods. Bali replied, "I am not fighting against the gods. I only want to protect my people." He told Indra about how the sage Agastya had tricked him into giving away his divine weapons. And without those weapons, he was no match for the gods. Hearing this, Indra felt pity for his uncle. He realized that he had made a mistake. The epic poem known as the Rig Veda has been called the oldest testament of human thought committed to memory. Scholars estimate its creation to be somewhere around 1500 BCE, but it is likely that parts of it were composed many hundreds of years before that. This ancient work contains hymns addressed to various deities in the Vedic religion, and one of these gods is named Vritra. Now, the word Vritra simply means encircling or cloud, and thus he was considered to be the personification of darkness. And, although he is typically viewed as an antagonistic figure, he actually represents a necessary force of nature which provides water, clouds, wind, and rain. In fact, there are even some hymns addressed to Vritra praising him for his beneficial aspects. But that's not what we're talking about today. In other texts, Vritra is described as a great serpent, a dragon, or even a demon. But for this story, which is number 47 in the collection of 10, we will see him as a giant snake who holds back the rains. Long ago, the world knew only winter. There were no seasons, and so people lived in a constant state of discomfort. They would huddle around fires trying to keep warm, but still, they suffered. They prayed to the gods for help. Indra was king of the gods, but he went out every day to hunt wild boars, and so he didn't hear their pleas. Then one day Agni, the fire god, decided to go and tell Indra what the people wanted. But when he reached the hunting grounds, he found that Indra had sacrificed a horse, and so Agni could not disturb him until the sacrifice was complete. So Agni waited 3 nights and 3 days, but still Indra refused to end his hunt. And so the fire god, being a messenger of the gods, did something that he had never done before. He lied to Indra, saying, "You are wasting your arrows on these animals, and it is not good to do that when you have been called by the people to protect them from cold." Hearing this, Indra dropped his bow and asked, "How could I not hear their calls? Tell me where they are so I can go to them right away." And Agni said, "That way, my lord, is far and difficult to find, but I will show it to you." And so the two made their way to the village, and upon seeing the suffering people, Indra immediately felt remorse and shame. And he swore that he would not rest until he had made things right, and he did. He unleashed his powers to drive the clouds away and bring warmth and light to the earth. And all the people rejoiced. But after 3 days, the sky became overcast again, and the rain fell. And now the people began to suffer from the opposite problem. They were wet, cold, and miserable. Once again, they turned to the gods for help, and Agni once again acted as their messenger, going to find Indra to tell him of their plight. And once more, he found Indra in the middle of a sacrifice. And once more, he had to wait. And once more, he lied to Indra, saying, "Why are you making sacrifices when the people need you?" And once more, Indra dropped his weapons and asked, "How can I not hear their cries? Show me the way." And Agni led him to the people, and now he saw that because of the rain, the fields were flooded and the crops were ruined. People sat huddled together, too cold to do anything. And once more he vowed to set things right. This time Indra needed a weapon, and he reached up to grab his Vajra, his thunderbolt, which was kept in the heavens. Now at the moment Indra raised the Vajra, the sky seemed to explode. A long spear of lightning slashed the dense black veil, revealing Vritra's vast bulk sliding before the cavern's mouth. The air was so thick that each mortal breath became a burden. All held still, waiting. Vritra roared deep as drums that had boomed for 1,000 years in cavernous halls. He rapped a nearby mountain and squeezed crash. The mountainside split. Stones thundered down. A pall of dust smothered the valley. Indra answered at once, Vodra, and hurled a blazing bolt. The report burst like 10,000 war drums together. Light flared white, spearing the dark. Earth shook, trees snapped. Far below, eyes widened, fear mingled with awe. Vritra lashed his colossal tail. A storm rose, ripping forests, heaving boulders into the air. Wind howled, dust devoured the horizon, as if to swallow Indra whole. But Indra did not yield. He laughed thunder, and his chest stand drove straight into the storm. Now Indra charged through the tempest, swinging his thunderbolt, and although the rain poured down, blinding and deafening, he could see Vritra clearly. With each step, the ground cracked, and with each breath, the wind shrieked. The god raised his weapon high and brought it crashing down across the head of the giant snake. Lightning flared, illuminating Vritra's contorted face as he reeled, struck, and staggered. Thunder roared, shaking the foundations of the world. The rain abated, then ceased. A heavy silence descended, broken only by Vritra's enraged bellows. Again and again, Indra struck, and each blow sent tremors through the earth, shaking the mountains and splitting the hills. Yet Vritra fought on, lashing out with his mighty tail, sending rocks and trees flying through the air. But his anger only fueled Indra, and he pressed his attack. Each swing of the Vajra echoed like the death knell of the approaching twilight. Vritra's roars grew fainter, his movements slower, his blows less forceful. And finally, with a deafening crack that split the heavens asunder, Indra landed a final fatal blow. The giant serpent let out a mighty roar, a last defiant bellow that shook the world. His colossal form convulsed one final time before collapsing, his bulk crushing the mountains beneath him as he fell. Silence descended once more, deeper and heavier than before. The rain clouds parted, revealing a sky the color of a ripening fig. Sunlight streamed down, washing the world in a warm, golden light. Where Vritra lay, a single drop of water trembled suspended in the air, catching the sunlight and splitting it into a million rainbows. It was the promise of the coming monsoon, of life-giving rains to nourish the parched earth. Indra watched, his expression unreadable, as the last vestige of the storm dissipated, leaving behind a world washed clean and vibrant in the glow of the setting sun. The threat of winter and the promise of monsoon both had been vanquished. Balance restored, his task was done. The people would know neither the bite of winter nor the deluge of unending rains. They would live in the comfort of seasons. So ends this tale of Indra and Vritra, a story not just of gods and monsters. It was an age of empires. That is to say, it was an age of men. We know little of it except through their monuments, great stones and greater cities, a few clay tablets bearing faded cuneiforms, and the echoes of their hymns still sung by the priests of the living flame. In those days, there lived one god among men. His name was unknown, or rather he had 1,000 names, each more terrible than the last, for he was the lord of storms, the god of thunder, the father of earthquakes. In his hands were the fate and fortune of nations. He strode across the lands with echoing steps that split the earth. The mountains cowered before him. Rivers ran dry and sang no songs of praise until he dipped his hand into them, cupped them up, and flung them back as rain. He was the source and the end of all. So long as he walked among men, none dared to question his ways. But when he turned aside from the world and went alone to the mountains, then men began to wonder what he did there. Why he spent so many seasons hidden from sight and how it was that he could be so terrible and so distant. It was here in this place that the first doubts took root. As years passed without thunder, people forgot the sound of his voice. It became a story told only in the evenings around the hearth, a tale to frighten children into good behavior. But a few elders remembered, and these waited patiently in their mountain homes, ready to call upon the thunderous aid if their fields lay fallow for too long, or if sickness struck their cattle. All others, however, lived as though the sky was empty of thunder and the earth unthreatened by earthquakes. The old gods of the rivers and the hills rose to power again, and men built shrines where once there had been temples to the thunderer. The gods of earth and stone and grain were honored with offerings of fruit and wine and flowers. The memory of the god of thunder died, or if not, then it slept. Meanwhile, high in the mountains, the god of thunder watched. In his solitude, he saw how men changed and strayed. He heard the new prayers offered to other gods, and he was not displeased. For the natural order was that men should live according to the seasons, planting, harvesting, making merry in sunshine, and sheltering from rain and snow. But some changes troubled him. He saw how men cut down forests and drained marshes. He heard their cries during droughts and floods. He felt their fear when the ground shook under earthquake or the river rose in flood. And most of all, he grieved for those who looked up to him with faith, for though men had forgotten his name, some still remembered his might, and they would cry out to him when others could not help. The god of thunder knew that he must return to the world he had made, but he hesitated. What purpose would he serve in a world where men lived according to nature? When he came last, he had given them laws and taught them arts. But now they tilled the soil and kept 2 paths and sang 2 trees. Theirs was a different way of life, and he was not sure whether he could join it. But after many seasons, doubt gave way to resolve. The god of thunder decided to walk among men once more. Then the earth shook as he descended from the mountains, and every tree bore witness to his passing. As he approached villages and towns, people looked up. Some were frightened, others hopeful, while many stood quite unaffected, for they thought the god of thunder nothing more than a myth. When he came to a city, he walked its streets. Some children recognized him and cried out in alarm, but their parents rebuked them for being naughty and rude. The god of thunder paused before a house where a farmer and his wife sat at table. "Is the Lord of storms come then?" said the woman. "That we may have rain to end our drought? Has the god of thunder returned?" asked the man. "That we may escape the famine that wastes our stores?" The god of thunder frowned, for he had hoped to surprise them with a hymn of praise. but when he spoke, his voice boomed like the breaking of a dam. "I am come," said he, "to see how men fare." And the farmer said, "What need has the thunderer come to learn? Is there not enough ruin for him to see?" The god of thunder realized then that many things had changed in his absence, and these were not always for the worse. People lived hard lives, yes? But they also laughed and loved and welcomed strangers and cared for the sick and planted trees to shade the roads. The god of thunder was thoughtful. Then he asked, "What would men do if I helped them?" "We need no help," said the farmer. "If the rain falls when it should and the river gives us drink, we live well enough. If the earth yields her fruit and the animals breed and the townsfolk buy our produce, what more can we want?" The god of thunder shook his head. This was a different kind of life from the one he remembered. Now he had brought men law and order. Now they lived by custom and trade. Now he had demanded obedience. They bargained with gods whose powers were less than his own. Once more he considered long, and when he spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Will men make me a gift?" asked he, "a gift that I can use and treasure?" And the farmer answered, "There are no gifts that men can offer the god of thunder. You ask for something strange, and your desires are above us." Then the god of thunder smiled. Taking a stone from the road, he hurled it up and caught it in his hand. As he did so, light burst forth. Then he threw it down again, and as it fell, light burst forth again. And the god of thunder said, "That is my gift, and yet I do not need it." And the farmer, seeing that light, cried out, "Thunder has returned. Perhaps the rains are near." He lifted up his hands, but his palms met only air. Then the god of thunder picked up another stone and hurled it up. Once more light burst forth as it fell, and he caught it in his hand, and he said, "Look now, mortals, is there anything more beautiful than that?" Then he threw it down, and as it fell, light burst forth. Every mortal heart leaped up. Old mountains, steadfast for ages, trembled at that sound. The clouds, once congealed, tore open, revealing the first pale patches of brightness. Mortals, seeing that light, cried out in hope. Thunder has returned. Perhaps the rains are near. They lifted their hands, but their palms met only air, not yet water. Only thunder, wind, and the vast sound of a battle in which even they felt somehow enlisted. Where did the world get its darkness? Why does it get colder at night? What is death? Is it really as final as everyone believes? And what powers lurk in the shadows, waiting to be unleashed? These are but a few of the questions that have plagued mankind since the beginning of time. For these and other timeless questions, we turn to ancient texts, stories passed down through millennia that still hold power to shape our understanding of life, death, and everything in between. They speak of primordial battles between good and evil where the fate of the cosmos hung in the balance. Tales of gods and demons, kings and commoners caught in the throes of love, war, and everything in between. The first rays of dawn touched the mountain peaks, painting the dark crags with streaks of gold. On a lofty summit sat Indra, king of the gods, his brow furrowed with concern. Below him, nestled amidst the clouds, lay the sleeping earth. It was a slumber from which she might never wake. For the demon Vritra had coiled himself around the sun, blocking its life-giving light and plunging the world into an endless night. Indra knew that if this continued, the earth would freeze, the plants would wither, and men would die of cold and starvation. He sighed, summoning his royal Bengal tiger, the fearsome Makara, whose jaws could swallow a mountain and whose claws could rend the very heavens. With a mighty roar that shook the celestial city of Amaravati, Macha took flight, diving towards the distant mountain where Vritra slept, dreaming dreams of eternal darkness. But Vritra was not to fall easily. As the tiger approached, a ripple of energy surged from the coils of the demon, blasting the Makara back. Sparks flew as the tiger's fur singed. Growling, Pacha prepared to strike again, only to be beaten back once more by waves of raw energy that blasted from Vritra's coils. Again and again the tiger attacked, each time met with the same result. Defeated and furious, the magnificent beast finally landed a blow, sinking his claws into Vritra's flank. The demon roared, thrashing about, but the tiger held fast. Macha bit down hard, locking his jaws around Vritra's coils so that neither beast could move. Then, with a Herculean effort, Macha dragged the demon from his mountain fastness and brought him crashing down before Indra. Indra stood up, his face grim. In his hand he held the Vajra, his weapon of mass destruction, capable of shattering mountains and splitting the firmament. It crackled with divine power, threatening to incinerate the demon before him. Vritra, his form flickering as he struggled against the tiger's iron grip, spat a venomous curse at the god of thunder. "You cannot defeat me, Indra," he hissed. "Your blows will only strengthen me. I am the embodiment of darkness. I am the shadow that follows light. You may strike me down, but I shall rise again, stronger and vaster than before." With those words, the demon's body exploded in a shower of sparks scattering across the sky like fallen stars. Indra watched, his eyes narrowed, as the fragments of Vritra reformed themselves, growing larger, fiercer. If he had been a formidable opponent before, now he was a nightmare made flesh. His roars echoed with the fury of a tempest, shaking the foundations of heaven and earth. Vritra lunged, his maw yawning wide, revealing rows upon rows of fangs that glistened like 1,000 swords. Had that bite struck true, Indra would have snapped like a dry twig. But something blazed in Indra's blood, a fire that burned away fear, doubt, and hesitation. His eyes blazed with righteous anger. Summoning all his strength, he whipped the Vajra in a wide arc, just managing to avoid Vritra's gnashing teeth. Clang, the heavens rang with the impact as the Vajra connected with the dragon's jaw. Sparks flew, not in a gentle shower, but in a storm of fireworks, as the force of the blow scorched the space between them. The dragon staggered back, momentarily stunned. This was all the opening that Indra needed. He pressed his attack, each strike of the Vajra forcing Vritra to raise himself higher and higher until the demon was scrunched up on a towering peak. There was nowhere left for him to go. With a final mighty roar, Indra launched his final assault. The air crackled with divine energy as the Vajra whistled through the skies, connecting with the base of the mountain where Vritra had coiled himself. The ground trembled. A vast network of cracks spread out like lightning bolts, splitting the mountain in two. Jagged shards shot up into the sky, falling away like a shower of meteors. The dust settled slowly, revealing a landscape forever altered. Before them loomed a jagged, scarred peak, the last testament to Vritra's hubris. As the sun broke free of Vritra's coils, its golden rays flooded across the heavens, chasing away the lingering darkness. The sky blazed with the colors of dawn as the world awoke from its long nightmare. But victory had come at a price. The demon's life essence, as he had warned, was seeping into the very fabric of the earth, tainting it, corrupting it. Tendrils of shadow snaked through the land, poisoning rivers, withering crops, and turning fertile fields to barren waste. Even the animals seemed to be affected, their eyes glowing with unnatural lights, their forms twisted and distorted. It was as if the world itself were in pain, as if the very soil beneath their feet were crying out for relief. And so it was that the gods gathered once more, their faces grave. Their voices hushed as they surveyed the damage wrought by Vritra's final stand. It was a grim task, but someone had to do it. Someone had to cleanse the world of the demon's taint, to restore the balance that Vritra had so carelessly upset. The burden fell to Agni, the fire god, his form a living embodiment of purification and renewal. With a heavy heart and a steady resolve, Agni descended to earth, his touch bringing solace to the afflicted land. Wherever his flames touched, the darkness receded, the corruption lifted, and life began to stir anew. And even as Agni worked, tending to the wounds of the world, his gaze remained distant, his thoughts troubled, for he knew that the battle was not truly over. Vritra might be gone, but his darkness was now a part of the earth, a lurking menace that could re-emerge at any moment. And so, with the world restored, Agni turned his thoughts to the future, wondering how long it would be before the shadows stirred once more, before the cycle of darkness and renewal began anew. For centuries, people looked to the sky with fear and wonder, tracing the patterns of the stars in the hope of finding answers to their timeless questions. In doing so, they gave rise to astrology, the belief that the positions and movements of celestial bodies could influence the course of human lives. Some saw in the stars a map of their destinies, while others found comfort in the idea that there was some grand order to the chaos of existence. And so it was that astrology became a part of human culture, a language whispered from generation to generation, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and dreams of countless souls. In the bustling cities and quiet villages of the ancient world, people gathered under starlit skies, listening intently as wise men and women interpreted the messages from above. The movements of the planets became a source of both fascination and anxiety, with each alignment and transit seen as a potential harbinger of change. And so the search for meaning in the heavens continued, shaping the beliefs and practices that would define astrology for generations to come. As we delve deeper into the world of astrology, we find ourselves drawn to the intricate web of connections that link the celestial realm to the human experience. Each planet becomes a character in a cosmic drama, playing out its role in the grand theater of existence. And as we learn to read the language of the stars, we begin to see that our destinies are not set in stone but rather fluid, ever-changing tapestries woven from the threads of cause and effect. We discover that we have the power to shape our own futures, to navigate the challenges and opportunities that come our way with grace and wisdom. And yet, as we embrace the empowering message of astrology, we must also acknowledge the limitations of this ancient practice. For ultimately, the stars can only guide us, not dictate our paths. The real power, we come to understand, lies within us, in our ability to make choices, to learn from our experiences, and to strive for the best, regardless of what the planets may align. So let us continue to explore the mysteries of astrology with an open mind and a discerning heart, recognizing that the universe holds both wonder and wisdom, and that the true key to our destinies lies in our own hands. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and comment. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us continue producing engaging content on ancient texts.